Heard they wanna stop the party. Well, today we gon' party. Few shots got a homie. The way that she move got me on it. Hi, and welcome back to Dr. Tranquility Talks, Conscious Dating and Relationships. I have an amazing guest for you tonight. I just took him off screen because I should have done that before, but you know what? It's live radio, so we're going to run with it, right? And I'm a little nervous because he is a big deal in the universe of podcasting, radio, and soon to be television. It's very exciting stuff. We're going to talk with him and bring him in. And I feel so honored and blessed to be able to have him here for you. We're just going to pay a couple bills and we will be right back with James Miller of Lifeology's universe. Joined here tonight by Dr. Hal Blackman of Blackman Health and Wellness Centers in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Blackman Integrative Healing in New York City. Good evening, Dr. Blackman. How are you?
Good evening, Dr. Tranquility. I'm doing just fine. How are you doing?
Wonderfully well. So what have you got for us this evening?
We were going to talk about ozone.
Great. Let's get into it.
Well, if you have fatigue and your mitochondria, the energy factories in your cells aren't working real well, and you need to restore, and you've never heard of ozone, you should look up Dr. Frank Schallenberger and the American Academy of Ozone Therapy and start to learn.
Wonderful. We'll do that. So, Dr. Hal Blackman is one of the friends. Oops, I'm not on here. I'm doing really good today. Yay. So Dr. Hal Blackman is one of the friends of the show. And you can hear me, but you couldn't see me, could you? He is I've been working with Hal and in Satori PR. And SatoriXPR.com is my little boutique PR company. And we've done some great work with Hal. We've done some TV and radio and public speaking. He's going to be at IHS, the Integrative Health Care Symposium at the Hilton in September, as everything is going live again. It's very exciting. And he has a new office with the Juhi Center on 61st and 5th. And his big clinic is out in Cincinnati, Ohio. So right now, I'm going to be introducing a dear friend and just a wonderful, wonderful man. James Miller of Lifeology is a licensed psychotherapist, a piano composer, very talented, by the way, who resides in West Palm Beach, Florida. He has been in the mental health field for 23 years. Yes, I'm reading. He is a subject matter expert who has worked in all types of clinical settings, including prisons, residential treatment centers, outpatient clinics, universities, hospitalization programs, and most recently in private practice in Washington, D.C., in the Washington, D.C. area for the past 14 years. Although he has moved things, it sounds like, to West Palm Beach. We're going to chat with him about that. Since the age of 3 years old, James has been a performer. He's a talented singer and a piano composer who would regularly perform in front of thousands of people on live television events. James currently has 2 instrumental albums, Consolation and Restoration, that are heard all around the world. He's currently working on his 3rd album, and we'll chat with him a little bit about that and where we can all listen to it. That will be released later this year. In his 20s, James participated in local commercials and television roles. Yes, he is gorgeous. And documentaries. He's even a principal actor in an indie film in Spain. In 2015, James decided to close his clinical practice. He was no longer feeling fulfilled and believed that there was a need for a next step for personal growth and development, which was very lucky for all of us. He moved to West Palm Beach, Florida, and integrated his passion for self development and his love as a performer. He integrate he James is known for his infectious laugh. Yes, that is true, and his relaxed manner. I Sorry about that, guys. He created his new brand, James Miller Lifeology. Lifeology has shared daily YouTube episodes, and it's a radio show, and it's so much more. And we're going to get into that. It evolved into a podcast later and exploded into a nationally broadcasted and syndicated radio show that reaches over 3 million listeners per episode. James is known for his infectious laugh. He teaches practical tools and techniques to help focus on what truly matters in order for people to live their fullest lives. And it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you James Miller. Hi,
Hi.
James.
Hi. Thank you so much. I feel like, I don't know, that was an amazing intro. So thank you for taking the time to read all that. That's very kind
Thank
of you.
you.
Thank you so
Fumbling
much.
through. So,
Okay, great.
so I'm so excited that you're here.
Yeah, I am too. Thank you. You have done, your listeners may or may not know, but you've been a guest on my show a couple times. And of course,
Yeah.
amazing as always, just
Oh,
wonderful. And
thanks.
also Dr. Hal Blattman that you just talked about, he's been on my show
Yes.
twice as well. So you both are stellar individuals. And I'm just so honored to be on your show today.
Oh, thank you. And we're going to talk about yellow flags in relationships.
Yes.
First, though, I want to get into because I want to plug your shows.
Oh, thanks.
So
Thank
I
you.
want to get into lifeology.
Mhm.
And what was the impetus for your developing
Yeah,
lifeology?
thank you. In 2012, that's just one of the main things you read. 2012, I actually ended a relationship, and for me, I just wasn't feeling fulfilled. I was doing a lot of things, had a lot of wonderful accolades, but I just wasn't growing. And when we all become stagnant, life just doesn't feel like it just feels drab. And
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, well, what's different and what's the same. So when I got out of that relationship, I actually started composing again. I hadn't composed in quite a while, and so I sat down and I just closed my eyes and just played. I've been blessed; I have a lot of music theory, so I can do that.
Hmm.
And so it was that's how everything started. And 2015 is when I really took the plunge and I moved. But when I started to really formulate what to do really, I thought, well, what am I quote good at? I'm like, well, I
Yeah.
talk for a living. I talk to my clients. I essentially interview them because in a clinical setting, you are talking with them and asking certain questions to get them to a certain location. So I thought, okay, well, I do that. I used to do a lot of television and film. I've done all these other things. So how could I make that work? And so I
Hmm.
thought, well, I could do group work. And I thought, well, that's still the same thing as individual work in the sense of it's still location dependent. And that was one
Right.
of the other main reasons why I wanted to move was I wanted to do something that was location independent. I wanted to move wherever I was. I wanted to be wherever I could be and do it wherever I wanted to and not
Right.
be tied to an office. And so I decided I had the opportunity to move to London or here in Florida,
Ooh.
and was a place that worked out. But with that, I just, like I said, when I really thought it through, I really listened to my own self, and I thought my inner self, and I was like, well, what is it that makes sense? And so was really listening to the people around me, and someone would be like, well, I'm really struggling with this, and just over conversations I would overhear, and
Hmm.
then things in my own life, and I thought, well, there's a reason, there's an answer to that, and so that's how I started the Lifeology brand in the sense of just hearing people have everyday struggles. And so what
Yeah.
Lifeology does is it's the study of life. I love the word so much that I trademarked it. So anybody else who else uses it for television or radio, that's not that's mine. Anyway, but the cool thing is that I believe that we all have life lessons to learn and life lessons to teach. And
Yes.
so when I would hear other people talk and I would speak myself, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I should try that. Or they would hear me say something like, oh yeah, that's something I'd like to try as well. So the cool thing is that we can kind of all help each other. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So people may see me do something and be like, oh, I don't want to do that. So thanks, James, for,
Right.
for
Thank
us.
you.
So they know to avoid that and vice versa. And so that's really how it started. So when I started the YouTube channel, and the funny thing was I really don't have that many followers on YouTube, which I didn't do it because of that. But what my goal was to be where I'm at today. So I thought forward okay, well, if I want to get to national radio and television, what does that look like? And so I thought, well, I haven't been on camera in a while. Let me practice that. So every day for 6 months, I did a little YouTube video. And if you go back and watch them, the content's good. It's not very inspiring. Production's not so good. But the whole point was I got to try that, so that's what I did. So I honed my craft again, and I just did it every single day for 6 months, and I got better and
Right.
better and better, and the content became more concise, more succinct, and so that's what I did. I think now for YouTube, because we'll still do YouTube now, but I've switched over to Instagram. I
Mhm.
think I'm at 183 of those little episodes. There's quite a few.
Wow.
And there's like three, yeah, they're about 3 to 4 minutes. The first ones were a lot longer, but the later ones were just 3 to 4 minutes. That's all anybody, even myself, wants to really watch or listen to
Yeah,
when it
that's
comes
true.
to quick things. So you're in and out. I create a platform of this. If you're struggling with this, try this, be aware of
Right.
this, and then it creates a platform and people go out and conquer. So that's
Absolutely.
really how it started. And then when I switched to podcast, I think I was on Blog Talk Radio I think I had like maybe 35 episodes on
I
Blog Talk.
know Black Talk.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then from there, I switched over to radio in 2017, and
Okay.
I've been really blessed with that. So it's gotten bigger. And I think with radio, I think as of this production date, I'm at 320 episodes on radio. So it's quite a few episodes. So I've been on there for a
Wow.
while. I'm on 3 times a week, and I get to meet wonderful people like you, and some
Aw.
really well-known people, and then some people who aren't so well-known, which is totally fine because it's all about we all have life lessons to learn and life lessons to teach. So it's a wonderful
Right.
platform, and I get to meet, like I said, so many great people, and I get to learn so much as well, and that just really makes me happy.
Yes. No, that's a good thing.
Yeah,
I
thank
love
you.
it. I love it. And we have, if we're not spilling the beans, coming up, James is going to be doing a television show as well
Yes,
under
yes,
Lifeology. A true
exactly.
television. So see,
Yeah, I know.
goal
Right?
attaining, goal attaining.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So that's the thing. So when I look back on it, I remember when I first started Lifeology, I was flying back and forth to DC, and so I went out with some friends one night, and a friend of me, a friend of a friend, found out what I was doing, and he was like, "Why would you do that? Why would you give up everything and start something?" He's like, "You have nothing to say. No one's going to listen to you."
Oh, it's
In that
horrible.
moment, I was like, "Who says that?"
Even if you think it,
No.
who says it?
So I was like, oh, I said, well, I guess we'll find out. And so every time, I mean, not that I've ever given this person a second thought, but when you hear naysayers like that, for me, and I'm sure like everybody else,
Yeah,
you have an option. You have a choice.
I've heard
What
it.
do you do? Yeah. What do you do? Do you stay and agree with this random person that you don't really care about? Or do you do what you know you're supposed to do? So
Right.
I don't think I've done too bad.
You've done very
So,
well, darling.
well, what's
Very
also
well.
really fun. Thank you. What also is really funny, and I found this out right after I graduated from graduate school. One of my professors, amazing woman, she was like a mentor to me, or was a mentor to me. She told me afterwards that a lot of the professors didn't think I would graduate or didn't think I'd be very good at what I did in psychology. And they're like, because I wouldn't challenge the theories, but I thought, well, that's great, but the application, and then I would think in just a different way, which I'm sure many people do. But
Hmm.
because I questioned so much,
Hmm.
they just didn't think, well, he's probably not going to do okay. So I mean, it's once again, people who believe in you don't believe in you. You determine your destiny. So
That's
for
true.
me, yeah. So after I just think it's funny.
It
Like I
is
said, I
funny.
think I've done okay.
It's motivational
It is really, yeah,
and
yeah,
inspirational, right?
yeah. Because I'm sure so many of your listeners have the same thing. Someone
Yes.
even close, and there's a difference, Lydia or Dr. Tranquility, in the sense of we have well-meaning people
Hmm.
who love us and want what's best for us. And so they're going to
Right.
give us their opinion. It doesn't mean it's what we need to hear, but
Right.
that's usually done in a loving way. And
Yes.
then it determines what we do with it. We still don't have to listen to it. And then you have those naysayers and those people who just don't like you. So there's people, two different types of people may say the same type of thing. It just depends on the motivation for why they say it. But
Right.
we all have the self-responsibility to figure out what we're going to do with that information. And so you
Yeah.
always want to take wise counsel. Keyword is wise. And then from that, you determine what you're going to do.
Yeah. No, you're so right. And I think it's really important to listen.
Mm-hmm.
At least for me, what I do
Yeah.
is listen. I'm moving off screen here. What I do is listen, and then you weigh it and you
Yeah.
assess it and you determine if
Yeah.
that information fits into your model. And
Exactly.
then you go forward,
Mm-hmm.
or you don't.
Yeah.
Maybe it's resonating with something you felt, and you need to reassess what you're going to do. And it doesn't mean
Yeah.
you won't do it. It just means
Yeah.
you may
Exactly.
tweak it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Um,
that's a great thing because uh, if we're not open to tweaking something, then if God, the universe, whatever you want to say, is giving us insights to pivot us to get us more in line with wherever we're supposed to do, or whatever we're supposed to do rather, then if we're not listening for that, then we might slightly miss it. So it's always good to get wise counsel, and then, like you said, you weigh it out to determine what happens next. Because I've had some people tell me some things like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, I appreciate that, let me think that through. And so you
Mhm.
never have to say yes or no at the moment, but you just thank them for it, and
Right.
you think about it. That's all
Thank
that
you for
matters.
sharing. With some people you go, thank you. I'm sorry. I'm having allergies today. So with
No,
some
it's fine.
people you go, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, thanks for sharing. But with other people, you mean it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
thank you so much for sharing with me. And
Yeah.
I try to
Exactly.
come from that place and just assume that they intend good,
Hmm.
because it's kind of fun. It's a little naughty because often if they don't, you piss them off, which is great. And if
Exactly.
they were coming from a good place, you've honored that and you've
Exactly.
given them
Yeah.
comfort and
Yes.
appreciation. So,
Yeah. Well, there are actually four categories of people in our life, and so the four categories of individuals are, if I may speak real quickly,
yeah,
the
please.
bottom category are those individuals who don't like you. It doesn't matter what you say or do; they're just not going to like you. It's just how it is. The
Mhm.
third category, the bottom two categories. The third one, it's people don't like you, but they can be talked into liking you, but it's still a tenuous relationship, and you always have to prove yourself to them. The
Mhm.
second category of people, those are the people who don't like you, or excuse me, who do like you, but can be talked out of liking you. So almost like that frenemy type of thing. You guys are
Mhm.
great, and then all of a sudden something happens, and there's a falling out, and then you can fake it, and just be fake with that person. But then the top category are those individuals who always love you, always care about you, and will always have your best interest in mind. And that's the type of individual you really want to surround yourself with, because
Right.
that's the wise counsel. So their motivation is to protect you, is to help you, and you know that whatever they're going to say is going to come from that place of, I love you, I care about you, these are my thoughts. And I know, and vice versa, they know
Mhm.
that they can say this to you, and then they also know that you don't have to receive it, but you understood the motivation for why they said it, and so it's a
Right.
safe space to talk about that. So it's really important,
Right.
because out of those four categories of people, only 25% of those people are really going to be for you. So it really comes to the energy output that you have. So if I give the same amount of energy output to every single person,
Mhm.
well, that's 75% of my energy that's quote wasted, because they don't really care. And so
Right.
you have to learn, even one's friend group, of how do I really discern what that 25% looks like. And so it's important, and this kind of goes to the yellow flags that we can talk about later,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
it really helps people to say, okay, how do I know that this person's for me? What I always do is, when I meet people, I automatically assume they're in the top category, and then I let their behaviors and their interactions then determine where they fall. And then what I also do, which is really important, is it's also important to give yourself permission not to like people. What I mean by that is this: you don't have to like everybody, but you always need
Right.
to be kind, and you always need to be
Be
personable, and you always need to be
respectful.
classy. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that you are your own walking billboard. So there's many
Mhm.
people I've met that I just know I don't like for whatever reason. And it's not that they're a bad person, it's just they're not a fit for me. And that's okay. So to understand where people are in your life in the categories, but also to put yourself in categories of where you probably are when it comes to that friendship group. So that also allows you to say, I don't have to give that much energy to this person, but I'll always be respectful, and I'll always be kind, and I'll always,
Right.
like I said, keep it classy. But it's important to know the difference, so that when you are with individuals, you can interact, but you don't have to emotionally give or emotionally resonate with that person. Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, we only have so much energy to give to the people around us.
That's true. And when I was younger, I spent an enormous amount of time on the first two p-
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
versions of human
Yeah.
that you're describing in our lives. I spent a lot of time trying to prove myself to people who were never going to get me
Hmm. Hmm.
for
Yeah.
whatever
Exactly.
reason.
Exactly.
Maybe it's that I was black, maybe I'm a woman, maybe I'm too
Hmm.
independent, whatever it
Hmm.
was, they didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I grew up at a time where being black could be in an
Mhm.
environment where that could
I'm
be a
so sorry.
reason that
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
like it. And then if being independent and successful in the things that I would do, even as a teenager and
Hmm.
so forth, there was a lot of jealousy from people, and
Mm.
it would present as, well, she's black, so she doesn't count, you know.
I
Um,
know that's. I'm so sorry. I mean, that breaks my heart to hear. I
no,
know it happens
I
every
mean,
day, but still.
you learn to get a different kind of skin,
Hmm.
don't you? And
Yeah.
you learn to read that kind of individual in a way
Sure.
that you can say, okay, it doesn't matter what I do, right? We're
Hmm.
not gonna.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
one that's tenuous, I spent an enormous amount of time on. And
Yeah.
especially in my
That's.
20s,
Yeah.
I just have to prove, why don't they like me? I know they like me. I must, if I stand on my head and pile on 30
Yeah,
pounds of brick on
yeah,
my feet, then they'll love me,
exactly.
and they
Yeah,
do for about 5 minutes. And then
and
someone
then they
comes
forget about you. Yeah,
along and
yeah,
sways
exactly.
them,
Yeah,
and they're fickle. And
yeah.
and it wasn't until my late 30s that I was like, you know what, this is not working. So,
Hmm.
and I'm sure so many of the listeners experience this also.
Yes. And that's why it's
Mhm.
always good. Thank you for. I'm so glad to hear your story because I mean, obviously, you've learned so much in your own life, which is great. I mean, that's why you're so successful. And I think that's
Thank
when
you.
people really listen to what we're talking about. It's quite liberating when you know that you don't have to prove yourself. You could just be. If
Yeah.
people love you, want to be with you, then they come to you. One of my favorite quotes is, "Go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated." When you feel
Yeah.
tolerated, if people don't call you back or they just don't want to interact with you, they're tolerating you. It doesn't mean
Mhm.
they may like you or don't like you, but when you're out of the scene, when you're not in their life, as far as physically in the space with them, if they forget about you, you're being tolerated. So when
Yeah.
people reach out to you, so it's always good to match the energy output. So for example, if you're getting to
Mm.
know someone and you're reaching out and you're texting them or calling them and they take a while to respond or they don't do that same type of method, same type of communication, then you want to
Right.
pull back and then match theirs. So now you have more information. And that goes back into the yellow flags we were talking about. We will be
Yeah.
talking about. But that's so important because if you keep putting too much energy out, then they already may be in one of those other three categories and you don't yet know it. So you allow them to determine where they fall based off of matching what they do and then
Mhm.
determine if that's a healthy dynamic for you. Because if it is, okay, that's fine. But if it's not, then you immediately know that you can move them to another category and then you move on to someone
That's
else.
so true. Yeah. So let's get into those yellow flags.
Yeah. Everybody knows what a red flag is. We can,
Hmm.
if someone, and we're talking about relationships now. So this
Yes.
can dating relationships or just even, friendships, etc. But for the most part, when it comes to dating relationships, everybody has a non-negotiable, a red flag.
Hmm.
For some people, it can be cheating. It can be many things. I won't name it because everybody has a different version of what red flag is. But many people don't talk about yellow flags. Yellow flags, we see the stop sign or the stoplight. Most of us drive more quickly than the yellow light, but the
Yeah.
yellow is supposed to say caution. It's about to turn red. Slow down. So it's the same type of thing when it comes to the yellow flags themselves. Is when something feels off when you're getting to know someone or in a
Hmm.
relationship. That is your self, whatever you want to call it, that's telling you something doesn't feel right. And so you want to look at is it their communication style? For example, if you're a texter and you like to text all the time and they don't text you back, or it takes them a couple of days to text you back, or you call them and they don't respond or they don't pick up, or they say they're going to hang out with you and then they kind of ghost you, or they don't ghost, they just you don't hear from them, or there's
Yeah.
always excuses. I mean, there's multiple yellow flags, but when something doesn't sit right with you,
Hmm.
that is yourself, that's your internal self saying, I need to check on that. I need to
Yeah.
find out more information on that. Now, some people may go, and I said this on the show I talked about before, but some people may go, check out someone's phone, like, oh, let me look through their phone to see what they're doing, which is not healthy. That
No.
means that, yeah, that's a different show.
Yeah.
But the point is you just want to ask questions. You want to tell them, hey, this is my communication style. This is the type of person I am. I love to
Hmm.
talk. I love to text. Help me understand how this is for you. And so when they can say, well, James, I'm not really a texter, or I don't really talk on the phone, but I really want to see you. Okay, well, that's helped me reset what my expectations are. Just because my communication style is one way doesn't mean it works for them. And so you
Right.
find that compromise. And so with a compromise is they don't have to text me the way that I do, but I would like to ask them. Well, I would love to get more texts if possible. I get it if you can't, but this is how I communicate to show that there's some type of connection there. And if
Yeah.
the person can decide what they want to do. But it also goes back to just more clarification. Sometimes we fill in the blanks with our own insecurities. And so we're like, oh, I can't ask this person something, or I can't do this because I've been told in the past that I'm too much of this, or I'm too loud, I'm too this, I'm too that. And we allow our insecurities or our past to determine should we check out a yellow flag. And when we
Mm.
don't do that, then unfortunately we're allowing the dynamic of the relationship, in other words, the foundation of that relationship, to be unbalanced. So now this person may not even realize what's going on, but now you think, okay, well, this is a yellow flag and I don't like it, but I haven't asked about it before in other relationships because I said I was too much of this, too much of that. So I don't say
Right.
anything. And then resentment builds up or jealousy builds up because we now all of a sudden have taken this unspoken uncertainty and now we've put
Mhm.
it into our current relationship. And when that happens, then all of a sudden what could have been a viable, healthy relationship, all of a sudden the foundation that you brought in because you haven't
Yeah.
asked questions, all of a sudden it's skewed. And so that's a struggle. So it's important to ask yourself, if you're experiencing something, is it something from the past? And if it
Mm.
is, okay, what are you bringing in? We often talk about everyone has baggage. What
Right.
baggage really is, though, is it's not the experiences; it's what you internalized the event to be. So if someone said, I'm divorced, or I'm divorced and have all these kids, or I'm a single mother, or I'm this, I'm that, those are simply events. You
Mhm.
determine if it's baggage based off of the shame that you've assigned to that event. And so if
Right.
there's no shame that's assigned to it, then there's no baggage. So like I said, an event does not define you. An event is simply an event that happened in your life. And who you are today is made up of so many events. So for example, I always tell people your life is like a jigsaw puzzle. Every piece fits together to be who you are today. So you see me on the screen right now. There's millions and millions of events that have linked together to be James Miller. So that's who I am. The events that I love, the events that broke my heart, the events that were shameful, whatever they might be. But I determine if I have baggage or not. So in this
Right.
moment, I do not have baggage because I've accepted everything that's happened, because I love who I am today. So therefore, there's no baggage that comes along with it. I've accepted everything. Now, it doesn't mean it's always being like that, but that's a work in progress. So it goes
Yeah.
back to previous relationships. When you are thinking you bring in baggage into a relationship, you've unfortunately assigned some type of emotional connection to
Sure.
that situation to now say, I'm broken, I'm damaged, I'm this, I'm that, and now this is what I have to offer. When you
Okay.
reframe that to say, I went through all this and look who I am today. I went through this and I got to the other side of that. So it's always the reframe of something. So when you remove the emotion or the grief or the shame that goes along with the event, then you come from a place of empowerment when you enter a relationship, as opposed to a place of deficit of being broken or rejected, et cetera, because that's unfortunately the choice that a person makes based off of how they view their life.
So
So
true.
going back to the yellow flags, if you come into a situation thinking you're broken, and I would never minimize anyone's life experiences, because we've all had such painful things. And so you have every right to feel however you want to feel. But if you don't like feeling a certain way, then you have the ability to change it. And that's based off of how you view that event. Were you the overcomer of that event? In other words, did you have to climb out of that situation crawling and scraping? Well, then you got out of it. So if you got out of it, you don't have to stay in it with your mind or your thoughts.
Right.
So
That's
that's the
so
really cool thing.
true.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the really cool thing, is just to really
Yeah.
recognize that coming into a relationship, you have every right to ask questions when yellow flags come about. And like I said, you want to see if it's something you're bringing in. And if that is something you're bringing in, then that's internal work you need to do. However, if there's something that's just not right, and it's not internal work that you have to work in from previous things,
Mhm.
then you have every right to ask the person you're dating, this is what I need, or this is what's happening for me. And so that's when you have those more defined communication. And then a yellow flag may no longer be a yellow flag. Then it can be a green flag. But every time
Right.
something comes up, you will know. And so it's important, because many times, and I'm sorry, I'm talking 100 miles an hour
No,
here, so please
no,
feel.
no.
So but it's important because we often have what's called an emotional stand-in.
Mhm.
Post COVID or during COVID,
Yeah.
nobody was dating. So many
Yeah.
people are lonely right now, and so when someone gives someone attention, like, oh, this person must be the one for me. They might be,
I
but
yeah.
but if you go too quickly and you don't, or you're not aware of potential yellow flags, then all of a sudden that emotional stand-in, what I call, is simply someone who is available, but they're not healthy for you. So
Right.
it's
Right.
so if you
Give
go
it
too
9
quick.
months.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, you know what's interesting is, because from a chemical standpoint, when it comes to the
Oh, yeah.
neurology of one's brain, it's only 2 years that we really experience it, and that's why most relationships end between 2 and 4 years. After the chemicals have slowed down in your brain, after two
Mhm.
years, and there's usually another year that people try and work it out, and then it just fizzles away. So that's why most
Right.
relationships between 2 and 4. But four is if they were trying a little harder, and then it's already been over with long before that.
Long
But that
before.
yeah, exactly. But we're going to hold on for whatever. But yeah, but it comes to those yellow flags, though. That's why you have to be aware of that. An emotional
Yes.
stand-in is just, like I said, simply someone who's happens to be there. Often people will say, "Well, I'm just living in the moment." Well, it's wonderful that you're living in the moment, and I'm 100% for that. But if you're living in the moment, ignoring yellow flags, that moment is going to turn into a year, 2 years,
Mhm.
3 years, and now you're dating someone that you knew you weren't supposed to date in the first place, but because they were there and it felt safe, doesn't mean it's healthy. So unfortunately,
Right.
all that time you put into a relationship with someone, and I'm sure they're a wonderful person. It has nothing to do with the quality of the person. It happens
Mhm.
to do if they're the healthiest person for you. So if you put
Right.
all this time and energy into a situation or to a relationship, unfortunately, that could have been time for self-improvement and self-growth to then hold off a little bit longer to meet a healthier, viable person for you to be able to have that long-term relationship if you're looking for. So that's why it's so important to always be aware of yellow flags, because if you don't analyze them or don't talk about them, unfortunately, living in the moment then becomes, like I said, a relationship of mediocrity, and mediocrity never
Absolutely.
leads towards self-growth or retaining one's goals.
Right. And also you can imbue a person with gifts that they may
Mhm.
not even have. There is a
Yeah.
reason that you had that yellow flag.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and I always go back to Maya Angelou, and she said, believe someone when they show you who they are the first time. And that's
Yes.
part one. Part two is listen.
Yes. Yes.
And
Exactly.
part three is accept it,
Hmm. Yeah.
and make a qualified choice based on this information,
Yes.
you know.
Piggybacking off what you said as far as listen, actually
Mhm.
listen to their conversation. If they talk about their friends or they talk about other people in a negative way, then that is the way they're, quote, wired, or the choices they've made, the behaviors they've learned. And so when they do that, that's how they respect people, is based off of what they say. So if they're talking about their friends in a certain way, you can use that same methodology to say, well, if they're talking about their friends that way, then they're probably talking about me that way. Or they may
Yeah.
not say those same content and say the same words, but that disrespect is part of who they are. And if that's the
Right.
case, and that's part of the foundation of your relationship, that will come out later. So it's so important to listen to how people talk, because that's how they will talk about you.
That's so true. Very true. And to remember the flags and remember the types of people that James mentioned earlier.
Yeah, all works together. All four categories of people.
You don't want to have a relationship where you're spending all your time trying to prove yourself
Yes.
and trying
Yeah.
to keep them on your side. You
Hmm.
know, they should
Yeah,
be
because
there.
it's a lot of energy. The other thing that what you just said earlier is, when you fall in love with someone's potential and not who they are today, that always leads towards a very unhealthy dynamic, because you're
Mhm.
always living in who that person could be, and they're living in the moment of, am I not good enough? And so to find that balance, and that doesn't feel good for them. So to
No.
find that balance of saying, am I in love with the potential, or am I in love with the person today? So
Hmm.
if a person where they are today is where they are today. And if you
Right.
fall in love with the future hypothetical person, well, then you're not living in the moment. And then you're creating a dynamic of, why can't you do this? I know you're better than this. Why can't you? And that just leads to
Right.
that person shrinking away and pulling away. So
Yeah.
just like Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, they're showing you who they are. They're not showing you their potential. They're showing you who
Right.
they are. And so
Right.
if you're dating someone and looking at who they could be, then find that person, date that person that could be someone like them, because they're not that person for you then. And so that's just
Right.
something it's a hard truth. But I've been in situations like that where I was dating someone, and I'm like, I see potential, but that was not fair to that person, nor is it fair to me. So learning
Right.
how to let that go and to say, I love this person, but they're not healthy for me. And once again, it
Right.
has nothing to do with the character or the quality of the type of person. It just happens to do with what's healthy for you.
Yeah, and don't you find as practitioners also, we can really fall into it takes a moment to get those boundaries straight, or you end up
Yes.
dating a client or patient or
Oh my
whatever you want to
gosh.
call them.
Yes. Yeah.
And and you're
Yes.
like, really? Why do I feel like I'm always working? And then,
Yeah.
it occurs to you because I am,
Yes, I am,
you know?
exactly. Yeah.
So,
It's funny.
so
My
that's
friends
one of
always
those
laugh
things.
because there's a certain type of people, I guess a template. And so I'm like, oh, I met this person, and I'll say whatever. And they're like, was this person like this, like this? I'm like, how did you know? I mean, it's a joke, because of course I was attracted to this person. Of course. And so obviously I don't date people like individuals like that. Wonderful people, just not for me. But it
Yeah.
just makes me laugh. Like, of course there is attraction there. It's so silly, but it's true.
And it's fun and familiar.
Yeah, exactly. And it's broken. So it's a broken dynamic, rather.
Oh gosh. Well, we're going to pay a couple more bills, and we're going to be right back with James Miller, and we're going to keep talking about these flags. We're going to talk about lifeology, and we're going to ask him a couple of questions about things that he's learned in life. So I'm so excited to have the honor of having James Miller of Lifeology with me, and we'll be right back.
This is Dr. Tranquility for LFTD infused teas. That's lifted infused teas. All lifted teas are made with premium spirits and cannabis. No preservatives or sugars to give you that hangover, groggy feeling. You know what I'm talking about. You can choose from 6 different flavors. My favorite, the mango peach. I find it to be the most flavorful. So, lifted infused teas at LFTD Infused Teas on Facebook and Instagram. Enjoy. Are you single and frustrated with online dating? Going on blind dates and wasting time and money hoping to meet someone in a bar? You don't have to compromise your search for the perfect partner and settle for less than you deserve. If you're ready to fall in love, a professional matchmaker may be the best option for you. This is my friend, Sophia Andriva, premier matchmaker and dating and relationship expert. Hello, Sophia.
Hello, Lydia. I believe good luck is when preparedness meets opportunity. I'll give you the tools to be prepared to create your own luck, find your perfect match, and develop a lasting love relationship. To learn more about my matchmaking, dating, and relationship coaching, reach me online at sophisticatedmatchmaking.com and quantum.dating.
That's sophisticatedmatchmaking.com and quantum.dating.
And that is Sophia Andriva of quantum.dating and sophisticatedmatchmaking.com. And I just want to give you a little bit of information about Lifeology. It is lifeology.tv and lifeology.com, where you can find all things James Miller. Amazing stuff, really good stuff, to kind of coin Martha Stewart and paraphrase a bit. It's a good stuff. It's good stuff or good things. So hello, James. Welcome back, guys. We are blessed and honored to have the James Miller of Lifeology here with us tonight. And we are talking so much about so much, right? But mainly we're talking yellow flags. I almost said red. Yellow flags and in relationship. And this is a dating and relationship show, and it could be a bit about relationship of all kinds, but we know what we're really talking about. So James, is there something you'd like to share?
I was in the while we were waiting for the show to return, I was thinking more about how people can really recognize what a yellow flag feels like. Every time something happens, we all of a sudden have a spike of emotion. So the way it works in psychology is whatever you think is happening, you feel it. You feel what you feel from that feeling, you then do something.
Right.
So when you perceive something, someone, let's say communication, they don't call you back or they text you, you feel like they've ghosted you. All of a sudden an emotion comes up. And when that emotion is really strong, that is an indication that you probably should ask more questions, because there probably is a yellow flag there. The other difference is you want to know if your reaction is a bit of an overreaction. So let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say upon thinking about it, you feel something and the reaction's at an 8, but with a little bit more perspective, and as you work it through, there's like, okay, probably should be like a 4. So from that 4 to 8, that is stuff that you brought in from your previous relationship. And so that's how you can pull that away and like, okay, someone's done this to me before. They never text me back or they never call me. I need to make sure that I've dealt with that previous stuff. And then it's still valid for me to have this feeling of 4. So I'm going to investigate with a 4, but I'm not going to come at that person with an 8. I'm going to come at them with a 4. I'm going to ask them questions at a level 4 and not overreact, because that overreaction, once again, is what you're bringing in. So we want to make sure that it's a healthy question, a healthy dialogue, as opposed to accusing. If you start to talk to someone and you come in accusing them, well, you or nor myself is going to take that in a very positive way. always want to ask questions.
Accusatory doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, you just ask questions, or you can say, historically I've dealt with this, and I want to make sure that that's not part of this new dynamic. So I
Yeah,
thought it was important to talk about. So
yeah,
I've noticed some of these things. Can you tell me more about this? What's your communication style like? And so when you can talk to them in a very conversational fashion, knowing that something may be in the way, but you know that this is a yellow flag for you, then you just ask them a question. But anytime you accuse someone, unfortunately, you've created a foundation that the person is not going to be open to a dialogue.
that's true.
And you're not going to get the answer you're looking for. It's just going to be turned into an argument.
Yeah, very quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
Like maybe the first word they utter.
Exactly.
Um,
That's very true. Yeah.
so let's talk all things lifeology. Yay! So since it's going to be a TV show,
Uh-huh.
is a TV show, it's happening. What would you say is the difference between Lifeology, the radio show, and
Mhm.
Lifeology, the TV show?
Great
For
question.
you.
Yeah. So for me, when it comes to the radio show, radio talks about all life lessons. So we all have life lessons. Like I said, life lessons to learn and life lessons to teach, and it's wonderful. I have all different types of individuals, from like journalists to health and wellness people, spiritual people, business people, entrepreneurs, single parents. I mean, whatever it might be. I mean, anything you can think of life, you're going to hear that on my show. It's
Right.
a family friendly show, so know that your kids can listen to it as well. I'm very conscious of that because I think everybody should have a chance to learn life lessons. So I always keep it very clean. My brand is very family friendly. When it comes to TV, though, TV is a little bit different in the sense of I wanted to focus more on emotional experiences. When we look at the life around us, there's so much divisiveness it comes from anything. You're either this or that, and it used to be there's a spectrum, and now it's not. If you're all of a sudden you're the opposite side of it, so different from someone else based off of what's happened in the world. And when that happens, we all feel like we're an island. Like I must, I'm 100% with these people. Then we think, well, that's not really true. I'm not. I mean, like for example, politics. It used to be, that there was a spectrum of political affiliations. Now it's
Right.
so diverse that everyone's like, I'm this or that, and that's not the case. So what Lifeology with James Miller, that's a TV show. What that really looks at is it looks at the emotional connection. Our life circumstances may be completely different, but we all know what love feels like: joy, peace, bitterness, rage. All of that is something we all know. So what
Yeah.
I do is I have the wonderful opportunity to interview people, and we talk about certain aspects of that. So some shows may be on rejection, some may be on feeling so lost and feeling so alone. Others may be on grief and loss of a child. And so when we look at the emotion that we all experience, it helps us realize that my neighbor may not be that different. I thought they were different because they just seem different in what they
Mhm.
believe in, but they're really not. So it really it decouples stereotypes. It removes so much stigma to help us realize that we're so much alike. And that's really what the world needs right now, is because we can name thousands of things that how different people are, but it's really not. At the foundation of it, we all feel the same thing, and in every
That's true.
country. And so it's not just a US thing, it's literally every country. Everybody knows what something feels like. And statistics prior to COVID were loneliness and isolation were one of the major contributing factors why people were dying early. And so I
Hmm.
can't imagine what the statistics are now during COVID or post COVID, because everyone was so isolated. And so that's something that I really took to heart, because it just was so sad to me that there's so many lonely people. And so a lot of that loneliness is either self-imposed,
Yeah.
or it has to do with we feel so different and that people don't understand me. So that's what I really wanted to create Lifeology with James Miller, the TV show, to really help people know that that's not necessarily the case. We think it's a case, but just because we think something doesn't mean it's true. So
True.
that's what I will do. So the first season, it's 13 episodes. Some really well-known people are going to be on that, and some not so well-known people, but they all have amazing stories. And so I'm
Mm.
really excited about that. Yeah, we're in talks with a lot of major networks right now. It's
Oh,
interesting. I'll say
great.
this a little bit different. Is pre-COVID, it was completely different when it comes to TV shows. Post-COVID, it's a whole new world when it comes to how shows get picked up, how they're funded, et cetera. So I've been blessed to work with amazing people as Stephen O'Connor at Brushwood Media, amazing company, amazing manager and publicist, my PR person. Great. And so we have a really good relationship, and he's been able to shop my show to many networks. And so now it's just the opportunity to see which one makes the best sense. So we'll see.
Oh, well, I'm going to be watching
Thank
definitely.
you.
I'm
Thank you.
very excited about it. Very
I
excited for you and all that you're doing.
Thank
And we
you.
have to get together and get that conscious dating
Oh, we
event,
do. Yeah.
down in Florida now that everything's opening up again.
Yeah, we
We should
do.
go ahead with it. And
Yeah, let's
guys,
talk
we've
more
been
about that.
talking about that. Sorry.
No, I
What'd
said
you
that.
say?
Yeah, definitely offline. We'll talk more about that because I would like
Yeah.
to discuss that.
Yeah, I would too. So we have been so honored and blessed tonight to have a chance to chat with the James Miller of Lifeology. And James, it is always such a pleasure and so much fun talking with you.
Thank
I
you.
barely let me see you. Now I can see you. It's always so much fun talking with you and hearing all that you share. And I thank you and I'm excited for what's coming for you.
Thank you so
Really
much.
excited.
I
You
appreciate. Thank you
deserve
much.
it.
Thank you, and I'm so honored that you allowed me to be a guest in your show and talk to all your listeners and viewers. I'm very honored for that. So thank you as well.
We have been honored to have you. So
Thank you.
thank you, James Miller. And make sure you catch Lifeology at lifeology.com.
No,
I
it's
have
close. It's jamesmillerlifeology.com.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
then
fine.
it
Someone else
worked
has.
out.
Yeah, someone else has lifeology.com, which is not affiliated with me. So jamesmillerlifeology.com.
Okay, let me put this up.
And lifeology.tv is my sister site, which will eventually be the TV site. But right now it's just a clone of jamesmillerlifeology.com.
Okay, so we're
And then
gonna.
I'm very active on Instagram at James Miller Lifeology, Twitter, James M Lifeology. And thank you. And yeah, so those are the main places. I'm on Facebook, but I don't really use Facebook, but
Yeah, I
Instagram
don't
and Twitter.
either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use Instagram all the
I'm
time.
always on that. Yeah. So you can, a lot of people can watch the interviews that I have. And then, but the radio show is a little bit longer because I teach the life lessons, actual 3 to 4 minute lessons, just like the YouTube episodes, but
Mhm,
I do it specifically for whatever that show is about. So
mhm.
yes, I have wonderful guests on there as well. So
Good. Well, thank you, sir. We look forward to chatting with you. If you want to hang in the green room, feel free if you have time, and then we can talk after, or we'll just catch up with each other soon. Do look for James Miller Lifeology, and let us know when the TV show
I will.
is out, so that we can do a plug. Maybe we'll do a little
Oh,
commercial for you,
thank you
so
so
that
much.
everyone can listen and tune in.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
So that was James Miller, James Miller Lifeology. You'll see it. It's right there below my face. Um, I encourage everyone to follow him. You're really going to enjoy his show. He has so much that offers and gives everyone. He comes from a place of love and truly wanting to assist, aid, and benefit. And when you have that going for you, you can't help but have an um, amazing show. And it's proving to be so. He's now moving into TV, and we're just beyond thrilled um, and really excited. So I thank you guys for joining me tonight. Remember, breathe through your left nostril. Let's do it 3 times. And trip that parasympathetic whenever you're feeling a little bit stressed or down, or just if you need a little extra energy, you can do the reverse and you can close off the left and breathe through the right. But the parasympathetic is yummy. It helps you rest and digest, and it's good. It's a good thing. So I better stop saying that. I have this feeling Martha Stewart. That's my phrase. But we will see you next week, and we've enjoyed this. We hope you have too. I'm Dr. Tranquility Lydia. You'll find me on Instagram, drtranquility.com, consciousdating.co, datetherapy.com. And if you're looking for PR or for some really interesting people, check out satorixpr.com. That's my boutique PR firm. And I will speak with you later. Bye.